Dying with Style.
Hello and welcome to Dying with Style. This is hopefully going to be a short, heavily edited video that's going to convince you why you should play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Because this is a game I watched on YouTube, fully convinced I would watch it once. Just watch a Let's Play of it and never speak of it again, because I didn't really have the money for it. Well, having now watched 2 Let's Plays of it and played it through at least 3 times in a row, I sort of lost track. I have to say this has got to be my favourite game of recent years. It's ridiculous, it's fun, it's over the top, and it really holds nothing back. I'm not going to show you the entire game, I'm just going to show you a few highlights that will hopefully convince you to try it yourself, because it's well worth it. Okay, now for the sake of context, this is 5 minutes into the game if you skip cutscenes. And the cutscenes are pretty lengthy. It's in no ways a movie, there's plenty of gameplay. This is a short game, so they pack a lot into a very short amount of time. And pretty much straight away, after 3 enemies, 5 enemies, something like that, you are put straight up against a Metal Gear Ray. Blade mode here, one of the major selling points of the game, I have to say is a lot more satisfying than it looks on the screen. There's something very visceral about using the free blade mode, if you see on the combat manual there, which is when you flick the right stick, you get to control the direction of your slash. And that means, rather than just, slashing randomly horizontal and randomly vertical, you actually get to directly affect where you're cutting something. So if you happen to want to make a little pattern out of enemies as you're slicing them into ribbons, you can. Which is something that sounds very juvenile, and is, but at the same time is equally fun, which I think is a perfect description of this game. It's a lot of juvenile fun. Now with big bosses like this, the game genuinely lets you wear them down bit by bit, and by bit I mean you do cut bit by bit off them. So in a boss fight, something I've noticed is that they really show the damage. When you cut a piece off them and leave damage underneath, like you've exposed their armour, they really start to look like they've been torn up to pieces. And a lot of boss fights have pieces of the boss which specifically you are designed to be able to cut away and damage, which is again incredibly satisfying. And then we have to touch on the cutscenes of this game, which it has a lot of straight up cutscenes, but then a lot of interactive cutscenes, one of which I'm going to shut up and not spoil. Something I absolutely love about this game is no matter what it throws at you, no matter how big, how scary, or how dangerous, it always makes you, by virtue of giving you the tools to do so, feel like the bigger badass. Now, that's not to say that there aren't plenty of ways to fail at this game. One misstep and you can be crushed by enemies that are a lot bigger than you. On some of the scripted sections, it's very easy to simply fall off and have to restart the entire section again. But when you get it right, you feel as incredible as what's going on the screen, because it's given you just enough control to do so. Whereas it could have easily made it a cutscene. Making it sort of an interactive cutscene is the difference between making this game feel like a movie and making this game feel like a game. And they've done a very, very good job of making it feel like a movie that you're taking part in. And as Billy Mays would say, but wait, there's more. Now the next thing I want to talk about in Metal Gear Rising is the Zandatsu technique. Now this is Raiden's technique that he uses to recover health and energy, and I'm going to show it off right here. Which is where if you activate blade mode on an enemy that you can cut, and cut where that red square was, you can then press B to rip out their spine, which apparently contains electrolytes that you can use to heal yourself. Now this technique is used throughout the game on pretty much every enemy. It's universal, but a lot of enemies, like you saw with the Ray, you had to punch quite a bit until you could weaken their armour and then cut them. This gives a sort of... weaker enemies become an annoyance, but also a health pack if you need it. Whereas stronger enemies are sort of... as long as you can get through their armour within one health bar, and you nail the Zandatsu, you know you can fully heal to take on the rest of the enemies in an area. Which means you never feel like you're out of health. You always just need to get to the next guy to rip it out of him. Now this may not sound particularly important, but in terms of making you want to keep fighting, you never feel like, oh, I should just restart this section because I've ran out of health too early. Because there's always a way to get it back if you just fight harder. Which makes the game feel like you can always progress as long as you just give it that bit extra. There's never having to hunt for supplies because you've ran out of energy. You never feel like you're worn down by a boss or an enemy or not given a second chance. Regardless of how ridiculously tough some of the fights get and how frustrating they may be, as long as you progress to the next section, there will always be something that you can Zandatsu or blade mode that will allow you to recover your health to continue to get back in the fight. Which means that the flow of the game is constantly on high. You're never having to draw back and run around like a headless chicken going, where's the health? You're always full on, gunning on, trying to progress to the next section. Which makes you feel like a badass cyber ninja, rather than someone that's, say, fighting for their life. Now, that's not to say that there's any point in the game where I felt like I needed to take damage. Something this game does very well is make you feel like any damage you take is down to a mistake, rather than forced difficulty. Now, what I mean by this is any time an enemy attacks you, their eyes will flash red and it will give you an opportunity to parry or evade that attack. The game will give you every opportunity to defend yourself to make sure that you can get through, I'm pretty sure, every section of the game without taking a single hit. Another part of this game I enjoy are the stealth sections. Now, this isn't stealth in your typical Metal Gear Solid hiding in box stealth, although there is that, which is a nice tribute to the rest of the games, considering the style of this game is completely different to that of the other Metal Gear Solids. This game gives you the opportunity to sort of eliminate tougher enemies in one shot and then Zodatsu them, as long as you haven't been detected in that section before. I'm going to show off some of that now. Now, you may have noticed this isn't stealth as in the kind of creep up behind your enemy stealth. You can run at full speed and they won't detect you because you're a cybernetic ninja. The point of this section seems to be just to not be seen and not alert the enemies, which is nice because it doesn't slow down the pace of the game, whereas if you had to creep around like any other stealth game, it would just break up the action too much. Whereas in this game, you can choose to do the stealth parts, and you can run around like a headless chicken as long as you don't get spotted by your enemy, which means you have to realise where they're looking, because there's no Metal Gear Solid cones of vision. You have to position yourself properly, you take out the enemy, and then you get a nice bonus to your score if you manage to do it through not being detected and not being damaged, because naturally if you've done a stealth section, they haven't even seen you to be able to shoot at you. Now, I could go on talking about the story and the characters and the pace of the game, but to be honest, it's all good. Good enough that despite the fact it only takes a few hours to finish, I would recommend it. If you like this sort of game, go out and get it as soon as you can. And I'm now going to leave you with a teaser to the Blade Wolf fight.
Prototype LQ84I. IF prototype. Interface prototype. All autonomous UGs feature high-level onboard artificial intelligence. An additional prototype interface enables verbal communication. I possess an intellect far beyond human recognition. Cannot continue.